All right, back at it after having the week off. I'm Greg Bishop, broadcasting from my home studio. Good morning. Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk. You can always chime in live and local and call in at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number for you to sound off and have your voice heard. So very much want to hear from you as to a lot of things happening over the past week while I was off. Everything from the preliminary injunction being issued against Illinois' gun ban to the ComEd 4 trial coming to a conclusion with the jury handing out guilty verdicts across the board, what that means for Mike Madigan and next year's trial that he faces in the ComEd corruption case. So obviously a lot of things happening and still a lot of things to cover and to tackle, including what is going on with immigration in not just the U.S., but also in Illinois, where you have the issue of whether or not taxpayers are increasingly on the hook for the ongoing issues surrounding immigrant health care, undocumented migrants being housed in Illinois, and how exactly you are paying for all of this through the taxpayers. And Governor J.B. Pritzker was asked about this earlier this week, especially when it comes to Greg Abbott from Texas sending more migrants to Chicago and how taxpayers are on the hook for this. So Governor J.B. Pritzker talking about the overall costs at a news conference, being asked about how the state's paying for all of this.
We're still talking to the incoming administration. There obviously is a administration as well. Just to be clear with everybody, we've already provided about $150 million of state dollars and services to serve those asylum seekers that are coming to Illinois. That's since August and continues on today. In January, we passed an additional supplemental appropriation that included money for the city of Chicago and for other agencies, about $90 million, again, to make sure that we were providing the services necessary. We're talking about shelter, we're talking about food, we're talking about health care, and making sure that we're taking care of the initial needs that people who arrive here with those very inhumane circumstances that are being visited upon the asylum seekers in Texas. People are being basically pushed onto buses and sent to Chicago. Many of the folks who arrive aren't intending to end up in Chicago. They didn't have that in their mind when they came from Venezuela or any other country from which they arrived. But somehow, because of Governor Abbott, because of a few others in Texas, they're being shipped around the country. We are a recipient of many. We're going to do everything that we can to care for them, for anybody that's arriving. But it is true that the current mayor said it, that our resources are stretched, and we've gone to the federal government. I've spoken directly with the president, with the chief of staff, with the director of intergovernmental affairs and others, and they are helping to push the money from FEMA out the door to states, but it isn't enough. And you've seen New York City is inundated, Chicago is inundated, and we're going to see more people arriving. And again, we're going to do everything we can to care for them when they do arrive, but we need a better system.
And if you're familiar with William Kelly, reporter out of Chicago, he actually went to a luxury hotel and confronted some of the employees there, was told to leave. If you've seen that video circulate on social media, it's pretty compelling, especially considering that these hotel rooms aren't cheap. And the taxpayers are ultimately footing the bill. So it's not just with the taxpayers footing the bill for newly arriving undocumented immigrants coming from a place like Texas. Taxpayers are also footing the bill for undocumented migrants' health care. And this is something that we heard about a couple of weeks ago with a recent audit indicating that the cost of covering undocumented health care, undocumented migrant health care, it's in excess of hundreds of millions of dollars, including the projection of $1 billion plus for the coming fiscal year. And a Senate bill, 122, it would actually lower the age of the eligibility for whoever could get these benefits, taxpayer-funded benefits that don't have matching federal tax dollars. It would be state tax dollars using this. So if they lower that down to 19, then you can see that cost increase even more. But already thinking about the overall costs to how this is going to impact taxpayers from the just overall, coming to Illinois and being housed in shelters or luxury hotels. And then you also get the question of the overall health care. So while we see an influx of more undocumented migrants to Illinois, what about overall Illinois population? Another indicator dropping while I was gone for the past week from the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and their migration data. And it showed again, Illinois lost 105,000 residents to other states in 2020, and WirePoint's compiling this data and showing that $10.6 billion left the state in taxable income from those 105,000 people leaving the state. Here's Ted Dabrowski laying out some of what this ultimately means for taxpayers. And we'll get this queued up and fire it off. Here's Ted Dabrowski.
The average income of the people moving to Illinois make $44,000 less than the people who are leaving Illinois. So we're losing wealthier people, and the ones that come in are not as wealthy. That's a big problem, too, because it's a destruction of our tax base.
And he says it's a trend that's not just happening in Illinois, it's happening in other states as well, and there's a little bit of kind of political prognostication as to what's going on.
We did a census in 2020.
It's Governor Pritzker.
Turns out all the American Community Survey data, wrong. We gained population in the state of Illinois.
But we didn't, according to the latest IRS data. Again, Dabrowski saying that this is clearly something that happens to blue states, not to red states.
Those states that are pro-growth, low taxes, friendly to business, friendly to people, they are growing like crazy.
While states like Illinois, year after year, show population decline. So a lot of moving pieces when it comes to population. You got undocumented migrants moving into Illinois, getting taxpayer assistance, not just for housing, but also for medical services. And at the same time, you're seeing $10+ billion leave the state. So how does this all match up whenever they come to putting the budgets together? That's a great question, and I don't think one that we have a clear answer on. So a lot more to come on all of this here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.